You ever just sit down and binge watch the Conjuring movies and halfway through you realize that you have no idea what year it is, who's alive, or why the demonic doll keeps showing up? Welcome to the Conjuring Universe, a horror franchise so twisted even the timeline needs an exorcism. So in this video I'm breaking down exactly how to watch the Conjuring Universe in order. We're going to cover the theatrical release order and the actual chronological timeline, but don't worry, we won't go into any spoilers, just brief details about each movie. And if you like the video, make sure you smash that like button, it really does help the video out. Now the Conjuring Universe revolves around two characters, Ed and Lorraine Warren, and these aren't just made up characters for the sake of a movie, these were real life paranormal investigators. Ed was a self-taught demonologist and Lorraine claimed to be a clairvoyant and medium. Together they investigated hundreds of hauntings including Amityville, the Perron family, and the Annabelle doll. While critics do debate their credibility, their legacy lives on, especially in the horror genre. Now the person that actually created the universe is James Wan. He's the architect of the Conjuring Universe, but this isn't his first rodeo. He actually created Saw and Insidious, two other major horror franchises. His ability to blend slow burn suspense with terrifying visuals helped shape The Conjuring into something bigger than just a ghost story. Alright, let's get started with the order of the movies that were released in theaters, which on the surface looks pretty straightforward until you realize that the story itself jumps back and forth in time like a cursed VHS tape. The first movie that was released was The Conjuring back in 2013. This is where it all began. James Wan's The Conjuring introduced us to Ed and Lorraine Warren and set the tone for the entire universe with the Perron family haunting in Rhode Island. And then came Annabelle in 2014, the creepy doll origin story. It was actually a prequel to The Conjuring, even though it came out after The Conjuring, and it gave us the first real spin-off from the Warrens' vault. Annabelle's glass case in the movie looks dramatic, but the real doll is actually a Raggedy Ann doll, way less creepy, or maybe more depending on how you feel about it. In 2016, we got The Conjuring 2, and it took the Warrens to England for the infamous Enfield poltergeist case. It also introduced Valak, the demon nun who became an icon almost overnight. Now there is a fun little Easter egg hunt in The Conjuring 2. I'm not going to tell you which scenes they're in, but in multiple scenes in the movie, you can see Valak's name spelled out in multiple things using different objects. Take a look. Watch the movie carefully and see if you can find them. Now the next movie that was released was in 2017 with Annabelle Creation. Now this one's special. This one's a prequel to the prequel. Annabelle Creation goes way back to 1955, showing how the doll was made and how the evil inside her got out. Now this one is praised as one of the scariest movies in the entire Conjuring franchise, and I can completely agree with that. Next up in 2018, we get The Nun. Now this marked the official origin story to Valak. It was set in a Romanian abbey in 1952. It's the earliest event in the entire universe, even though it didn't hit theaters until 5 years after The Conjuring. Now this next movie we're going to talk about is a little controversial among the fans because it is set in the universe, but just barely because of a little cameo that was in it. So it's not really necessary to watch this, but it is technically a part of the universe. And that movie is The Curse of La Llorona. It came out in 2019 and it barely connects to the rest of the franchise. This movie still lives in the Conjuring universe, like I said, thanks to Father Perez from Annabelle. It's based on the terrifying Latin American legend of the Weeping Woman. And in that same year, we get Annabelle Comes Home. Now this movie is set mostly in the Warrens' haunted artifact room. This movie kind of acts as a crossover between the Annabelle movies and the main Conjuring movies. Judy Warren and her babysitter face off against a house full of unleashed cursed objects. Next up is The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, released in 2021. This one pushes the story into the 1980s. It's based on a real-life trial where demonic possession was used as a murder defense. Less haunted house, more courtroom horror, but it's still very much in the Warrens' territory. Next up, we're heading right back to Valak with The Nun 2, released in 2023. The Nun 2 brings Sister Irene face to face with the demon again, continuing the events of the first Nun film and sliding right between Annabelle Creation and Annabelle in the overall timeline. And finally, The Conjuring Last Rites, released in 2025. This one is said to be the Warrens' last case on screen, covering the terrifying Smurl haunting that panned over a decade in Pennsylvania. So that's how the movies were released in theaters, but now let's rewind and take a look at this timeline, the way that everything happened. Alright, now here's the real order to watch the Conjuring Universe if you want to follow the story from beginning to end. It starts in the 1950s and stretches all the way into the 1980s. The first movie chronologically is The Nun, set in 1952. It's set in Romania. A priest and a young nun uncover a dark secret buried inside a remote abbey and face off against the demon Valak for the very first time. And then in 1955, Annabelle creation happened. 3 years later in California, a grieving doll maker opens his home to orphans and a nun. That's when Annabelle's demonic origin is truly unleashed and things go downhill fast. 1 year after that, Sister Irene returns in The Nun 2, battling Valak again, this time across a Catholic boarding school. It's a direct continuation of her story, still long before the Warrens get involved. And now let's jump ahead to 1967 and the haunted doll resurfaces. A young doctor and his pregnant wife find themselves stalked by a demonic entity attached to Annabelle. This is where the Warrens' artifact room legacy actually begins. Now in 1971, we get The Conjuring. Now we meet the Warrens officially. In Rhode Island, they help the Perron family survive one of the most intense hauntings of their careers and truly kick off the shared universe. And then a year after that, we get Annabelle Comes Home. The doll is locked up, but not for long. Like I said before, Judy Warren and her babysitter are locked in the house in the artifact room with not just Annabelle, but every other cursed item. 1973, Los Angeles, La Llorona, the Weeping Woman, stalks 2 young children. Once again, this one is loosely connected to the timeline through Father Perez, but otherwise just stands on its own. The Conjuring 2 takes place in 1977. We head straight to England for the infamous Enfield poltergeist case. The Warrens cross the Atlantic to help a family haunted by a violent spirit, and once again, Valak is lurking. Finally, we land in the 1980s with The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. It was a court case like no other. After a failed exorcism, a young man commits murder, and the Warrens must prove demonic possession in a courtroom. It's one of the most shocking true stories in their files. The Conjuring Last Rites is going to be spanning about 10 to 15 years in the 1980s. It's going to cover the Smurl haunting, and this is reportedly the last movie in the Conjuring universe, until a couple years pass, they want to reboot the whole thing. Now you may be asking yourself, why was it released like this? Why is the timeline just all over the place? Why is there a prequel to the prequel? Well, in 2013, when The Conjuring was actually released, no one knew it was going to be such a big hit. It was such a big hit that a sequel was immediately greenlit, as well as the Annabelle spin-off. So there was no way to know what this was going to become. So they found out through these movies, through the main movies, Valak was a hit, Annabelle was a hit, and then they threw in La Llorona for whatever reason they did that. I don't know why they did that, but these movies were so good, especially at the beginning, that they were able to branch off and create a shared universe that we all know and love now. So if you're diving into this universe for the very first time, or just want it to finally make sense, here's the best way to watch. We're gonna watch it in chronological order. The Nun, Annabelle Creation, The Nun 2, Annabelle, The Conjuring, Annabelle Comes Home, The Curse of La Llorona, The Conjuring 2, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, and The Conjuring Last Rites. But either way, there's no right or wrong way to watch these movies. You can watch them the way that they were released or chronologically. It doesn't matter. It's always going to be a good time. Now, at the end of the day, the Conjuring universe is one of horror's most ambitious experiments. It blends true stories with spiritual warfare into one dark, interconnected timeline. Whether you're in it for the scares, the lore, or the real-life legends behind it, there's a little something in the universe to haunt everybody. But out of all of these movies, which one creeped you out the most? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.